Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Gentrio Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Murphy, and joining me today is Jonathan Taylor. He's been in the movement for 17 years, primarily in the CUSO space. He started his career at the U.S.'s oldest CUSO, the Maine Credit Union League Insurance Trust, where he co-founded and went on to help lead the CUSO-created CU Certified. He was the VP of Sales at Arkatechture, now Arkatechture CUSO, and now is the CEO of CU Soul, a for-credit union CUSO which leads the CU Safe Initiative, a CU-focused domestic violence initiative. He is passionate about saving small credit unions and leagues and believes in solutions with soul, as well as his personal motto, if it can't be fun, it can't be done. John, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, Jacob. Appreciate it.
So tell me more about how you became involved in the credit union world.
Yeah, like a lot of people in this space, I kind of fell into it, and I hear that story over and over again. A buddy of mine that I was living with at the time came home and said, "Hey, my dad is looking for a sales guy." And his dad had always worked at State Farm and done other insurance type stuff. And yeah, he's looking for a new sales guy, and he brought you up. And I thought to myself, oh, I do not want to sell insurance. That is the last thing I want to do. And I was like, okay. So I had started a web development firm called Page One Web Solutions with a buddy of mine, and had a degree in media studies. And I took the interview to see David, and out of respect, but also because I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to get this job. And afterwards, he'll probably feel a little bit bad, and I'll get an appointment on a website, and I'll hopefully sell him a website. Mm-hmm. So I went into it not expecting. And you know how well you interview when you don't really think you want a job or that you're going to get a job.
Oh, yeah.
You interview very well. And so there was 28 people for the job. And the next thing I knew, I was down to the top 3. And I'm like, oh, God, no. Like, this is going to totally backfire on me. I might actually get offered the job. And I'll never forget David Baird, who was the retired president of the Maine Credit Union League Insurance Trust. He has this big booming voice, and he called me one day and said, JT, this is the call that's going to change your life. Mm-hmm. And you got the job. And so I had to tell him that, I wasn't sure that I wanted it. And so anyways, I thought about it, went home and decided to give it a shot. And he was right. It was, in fact, the call that changed my life. And so that's how I started at the Maine Credit Union League Insurance Trust, which, as you mentioned in the intro, that's the U.S.'s first CUSO. That was before they had come up with that acronym, CUSO, or a credit union service organization, and did member and lending products for all of our credit union owners in Maine and New England. And just really cut my teeth doing that for over a decade.
Okay. And you ended up enjoying it, I imagine.
I did. I loved my credit union owners. I've been a lifelong credit union member, but I really didn't understand what that meant. I really didn't understand the movement, as we call it. And, I really, really enjoyed working for, and still do, working with and for credit unions. I just think, I'm a big vote with your dollars kind of guy. And I really feel that it's the best way for you to vote with your dollars, financially. So yeah, it's feel good work, and it's important work.
Mm-hmm. So for our audience who may not be familiar with the difference between a credit union and a perhaps more traditional bank, can you explain what that difference is and what you mean when you say the movement?
Yeah. So the biggest difference and the easiest way that I've been able to break it down for folks who have no idea, because they hear the word credit and they think credit card, and they hear union and they think, oh, what is this? Some kind of socialist thing. Mm-hmm. No, it's a financial cooperative. And so, as I mentioned a minute ago, I like to vote with my dollars. Well, as a credit union member, you're an owner of the credit union. So imagine being with a bank today, only you own one share of that bank. just for using that bank as for your checking account and your savings and other loans you might do. Only the difference is the more business you give them, the more money you get back, or the more benefits you get back, because credit unions they're nonprofit, and so they're not allowed to make $1 of profit. And so any profit they do make, they share back with their credit union owners. That's one difference. The other difference is that a credit union is managed by a board of volunteers, and those are volunteers that volunteer for free. They don't get paid, and so the decisions that a chair or a board member of a bank might make, it's really in direct correlation to how much money they personally are going to make. Which that's not always in line with what the customers want, right? Because, hey, let's throw another fee on top of this. That'll make us more money. That's not great for the Joe lunchbox, right? But with a credit union, the board is made up of members and volunteers. And so the decisions that they make are also selfish. It's for, what's going to benefit them as a member, but that is directly in line with the rest of the membership. So volunteer board and not-for-profit, and the members or customers, for those that don't know the terminology, the members own the credit union. So you get a vote, you get a voice, and you get one share of ownership.
And is that what you mean by movement? It's, an industry where the members, as you said, have that power to kind of control the institution that they're a part of?
Well, it's a cooperative movement, so a lot of folks love to support their local cooperatives. And this is a movement made up of financial cooperatives. It started in the United States back in 1908 to serve the underserved populations. It's really to provide financial wellness to mostly immigrant women and children that were working in Manchester, New Hampshire, in the textile mills. And they were unbanked. Nobody would work with them. They didn't speak the language. They spoke French. And so really the basis of the movement, the credit union space, is that, they serve the unbanked, they serve the underserved. And it's really all about people helping people, but helping the people who need the most help in this country.
And so how did this experience here in this the credit union world that you found yourself in and found yourself really interested in and loving, how did you go from where you were with this first job to CUSO?
Yeah, so coming into the credit union space, I brought with me my previous work experience I mentioned I had a degree in media studies, production marketing. I had done web development, search engine optimization with a firm. I had sold jewelry, and I had actually worked in the auto industry for a period of time, Mitsubishi and Hummer. And so when I came into the credit union space and I started working with lending products, I immediately noticed that there was a big difference between the protection products that were offered at the dealership and the protection products that were offered at the credit union, whether that's gap protection, vehicle service contracts, or warranties, some people call them, and the like. And I really just came to a conclusion that we needed better products and services. And so partnered with two other CUSOs, and we created a program called CU Certified, which is still going today. And that's a vehicle service contract that tells the truth, and it gives back 100% of the leftover money after claims are paid back to the credit union where it belongs. So we did that. We launched that into 18 states. I left the Maine Credit Union League Insurance Trust to pursue that dream, since I was one of the co-founders of that. And we that was a wonderful adventure. And then right before the pandemic, I realized that Delta was treating me too well, which means you're not home enough, and decided right when the pandemic started that I needed to take something that was closer to home. And so I moved over to Arkatechture CUSO, as you mentioned. I wasn't a CUSO at that point. They were thinking about becoming a CUSO. And I actually grew up with the CEO, Jamie Jackson. Shout out to Jamie. And he brought me on board as the VP of sales there, and learned a lot about data, learned a lot about how much the credit union space needs, data lakes and single source of truth and data governance and all that stuff. So that was a really, really huge education for me. And then while I was there, I was calling on this CUSO called CUSO. And it was, the CEO was one of my previous board members at the Maine Credit Union League Insurance Trust, a gentleman named Steve Belargin, who was the CEO of Penobscot County. Great guy. Had been with CUNA Mutual for years and years before taking the helm there. And so he really knew our business, and we were just always very, very aligned. He's a wonderful, wonderful man and good friend. And he called me back one day and said, "Hey, how's all that data crap going?" And I said, "Oh, it's going okay. COVID has obviously been a problem, but," and he said, "Well, would you consider something different?" And I thought he meant, work with him, something like that. And he said, "No." He said, I said, "Which job?" And he said, "Mine." And he had already retired once, and, decided it was time to retire again. So I applied and got the job as the CEO of CUSO, and it's been over 3 years now, and here I am.
When working, being at CUSO, what does that process look like to work with a credit union? Either like the day-to-day or kind of the big picture vision of, working with credit unions at CUSO.
Yeah, what does CUSO do?
Yeah.
So our tagline solutions was SOL, do well while doing good. And we really believe in putting purpose at the center of everything that we do, which really folds in well with the whole people helping people mantra of the credit union space. And so the crown jewel of that is our initiative called CU Safe, which is, that's an acronym. We love our acronyms in the credit union space. Survivor Advocacy for Financial Empowerment. So it's about supporting domestic violence survivors and helping them by snipping the threads of control around the financial abuse aspects, because 99% of survivors of domestic violence suffer from the financial abuse aspects. And in recognizing that and realizing that, we said, you know what, credit unions have a real superpower here. They can help a survivor separate the funds or start to squirrel money away so that they can plan their escape or moving on with a new share account or a savings account or checking. They can provide no credit or bad credit lending in some cases, because the credit in many cases has been destroyed right along with the person's self. And so and credit is it's all encompassing. If your credit's been destroyed, and it is very easy to have your credit destroyed, very, very simple. And so if your credit's been destroyed and you're now, 600 or below, 500, if the first number is a 4 or a 5, then you can't get an apartment. It's not just about loans, right? And so it's also about getting a job or getting auto insurance or getting, everything is tied to credit, unfortunately. So, also the program's about, we call it aftercare. It's about helping with financial wellness, with budgeting, with healing the credit, with just doing everything we can on the financial side in order to break the cycle of domestic violence.
Yeah. In those, in the cases that CU Safe deals with, do you find that, and this is just kind of my curiosity on it, do you find that the abusers tend to intentionally break down their victims' credit as a way of entrapping them, basically?
Yeah, it's a weapon. I mean, it's really hard to get away if you can't free the phone it's tough to call for help if you can't call.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is communication. And so if you can't communicate, then you can't ask for help. That's number one. Number two is freeing the funds. If you have to flee, and in many cases, fleeing for your life, and you have to leave everything behind, including the money, then you literally have nothing that you can build from to start. And then as you're asking for help, either in the form of loans or other things, or you're asking to get a new start with a new apartment or whatever, if your credit's been damaged, and we've seen just some diabolical stuff. I mean, it boggles my mind how brilliant people can be in horrible ways.
Oh yeah.
It's like, God, if you just put your talents for good, you could like cure cancer with this
really good with it. But.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, the apartments in her name. She leaves, so they open every window, turn on every light, run every faucet for days, knowing that that's going to run up a huge bill. The water bill is a lienable thing that'll ruin the credit. Mm-hmm. It's really, really crazy. So the short answer is yes, and you would be shocked at how bad it is, but it's really been an incredible journey. We've learned a lot. That was the number one reason why I said yes to the job, is because there was this initiative that was started by U.S. Eagle Federal Credit Union. And the godmother of the program, a woman named Pamela Herndon, she's a board member of U.S. Eagle, longtime board member. She's a state legislator, and she's a social justice attorney. Wonderful, wonderful woman. And she was seeing case after case after case. And she said, my God, this financial abuse is just crazy. And she knew enough, because she was served on the board for free, right? We talked about that. Mm-hmm. Volunteered on the board of her credit union, and went back to U.S. Eagle and said, we need to do something here. We've got to help. And that's why CU Safe was born. So really what it is today is it's a tech stack we call SafePath. And we blend together a AI capable chatbot with a safety app, and then with a telecom or a new cell service called Members Mobile. So we blend those three things together. And what it does is it helps the survivor find a path to domestic violence resource centers, or DVRCs, in their areas, and then move them over to the credit unions. And that's actually how I met you guys, because I was representing CU Safe at the CCUA, the Cooperative Credit Union Association, mm-hmm. Annual meeting, and Gentrio had a booth, and Renee Fry was at this booth, and I don't know if it was just the everything about me, and I'm summarizing the conversation, but she basically said, you look like a guy who doesn't have his will in order. And she must have noticed the ring tattoo and no ring. And, and I said, geez, is it that obvious? And she said, yeah. And so she started telling me about what Gentrio does. It helps with wills and, with trusts and, with all of that stuff. And I was fascinated by it. She gave me a code, told me to go home and do it. And then I saw her at the next event, and she recognized me and said, have you done it yet? It's like she knew. And I was like, oh, no, I haven't done it yet. And we just, she asked me about what we did, and I told her about CU Safe. And so we thought, gosh, this isn't the first probably 15, 20 steps that a survivor needs. But, for some at some point, redoing that will or setting up a, trust or estate planning, that sort of stuff is an important part of it. And how can Gentrio work together or add their superpower into the mix with the CU Safe initiative?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's great that we were able to connect first of all, but I also just for the CU Safe initiative, I think that's fantastic. And you know, being in the estate planning world with Gentrio, we see a lot of issues with financial abuse, particularly elder
Mhm.
abuse when it comes to
Yeah.
end of life care and people abusing um, to try to get people's basically take their estates. So I would love to see programs be initiated to help with that. But I think CU Safe sounds like a fantastic program, and obviously we're happy to be able to help wherever we can. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one point to make there, elder abuse in the credit union space
mhm.
has been something that has, there's always, it's like any of these issues, it's kind of its own pandemic, right?
Oh yeah,
And
it's
in
crazy
the
how frequently it's happening too.
and it's only getting worse because of AI and other things. And so it's like we have to keep telling these stories. The focus has been on elder abuse in many ways, and not to detract from that, I say let's keep going there. But what's really amazing to me in this work is that domestic violence just continues to be that silent thing
Hmm.
underneath, just underneath the surface. And what I've never worked in an initiative before in my life that resonates so strongly with so many people once you just explain what it is. And it's either they themselves are a survivor or they love somebody who is. And I'm
Hmm.
talking top three: a parent, a sibling, or a spouse, or a girlfriend boyfriend relationship, or a child. And so, our job now is just to really get the awareness out there, and also to say it's not just for the credit unions that might be listening. It's not just about the people outside, out there in the world that need this help. It's also current members that are in your organization, that are already members of the credit union. And even a step further, it's also your staff. It's also folks that are going through it in your organization that you don't know about. And we've seen that over and over again. So it's a huge pandemic of its own accord. And really, our job is just to really shine a light on this and to try to get more and more people involved, because it's a huge problem that costs our economy just here in the United States over $8 billion a year. And we just, not to mention the suffering. It's not all about the math, but
Hmm.
we got to do something. So we're really proud of how far we've come, but we've got a lot further to go.
So let me ask, just because you had mentioned it before, and I feel like it would tie in well to what you've already been speaking on. But what is that motto, "Doing well while doing good," mean to you then?
Yeah. So doing well while doing good. It's it's a big question because it's all encompassing. But for me, the fact that I think more and more people want to vote with their dollars, and I've said that a couple times on here, and people want to know that their money matters, that where they put their money matters more at one place versus another. And so for those financial institutions that are listening, I see a lot of financial institutions that kind of say yes to everything, but they don't look back to their origin story, back to their why as much as they should. And they don't talk internally about what are those 2, 3 unique causes that you really want to stand for. And so just the fact that, if a credit union picks, it could be elder abuse, it could be, the Barbara Bush Children's Miracle Network, which is one of my favorites, or it could be something like this, like domestic violence, or immigration. It's focusing on knowing that the credit union space came from a need where the banks wouldn't give these immigrant women and children mostly the time of day. And
Hmm.
so where are those pockets in society that really need us? Because if you do good in your communities and you reach out and you help them when no one else will, what that creates is loyalty, lifelong loyalty. And loyalty equates to liquidity. because folks will bank with you over anybody else. And, it's funny because people go, well, you're only as loyal as the interest rate. But that's A plus paper thinking. Yes, those folks have no loyalty. But the ones that have, horrible credit that you gave them a shot, in many, many cases, what you find is a lifelong loyalty. So a survivor of domestic violence who you provide a share in a checking account that you will give them a up to $10,000 loan, regardless of credit, or get you on that path, teach you how to budget, teach you how to heal your credit, and stay with you through that journey as you're able to slowly snip all those threads of control. What are they going to say about you as an organization to everybody that they meet who's talking about a banking need? They're going to say, you have to go see US Eagle, for instance, because they gave me they helped me out when nobody else would. Mm-hmm. It's about helping folks, serving the underserved, and it's a longer way around the barn than others, but it's a sticky long-term game plan. And the younger generations, let's face it, they want to vote with their dollars. Mm-hmm. They want to support causes, and they support co-ops left and right. So the cooperative financial movement just needs to do a better job, I think, of picking those things that resonate and shining a big bright light on it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic too, as you mentioned, like even something as small as teaching someone how to budget.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people might think that's not something we even need to offer, but you'd be surprised how many people actually need that. And the fact that you guys offer that, I think, is fantastic.
Well, isn't it interesting that that's not mandatory education?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it interesting in our society? Probably the two most helpful classes I ever took, one was typing, which I know they don't do anymore. Oh, yeah. One was typing. I use that every single day. And the other one was adult living. And the only reason why I took that class was because I had an extra period on my senior year. You'd already blown through all your, the required classes. And I was bored, and some of my friends had taken it. And I'll tell you, that was the most useful class. Taught me about budgeting, taught me about credit, taught me about, checking accounts and financial products and insurance and all of this stuff. Now, did I make my mistakes? Of course I did. But at least I knew kind of what I was doing a little bit more. So, it's not taught in the school, and credit unions are in a very unique position to to help educate folks, and help them prepare for the future, because things are only getting worse. And our economy, all politics aside, it's going to get harder before it gets easier. So we've got to do the right thing, and help folks. And if we do that, that's how we get liquidity, and that's how we get more business down the road. So that's what I mean by doing well while doing good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember your story reminded me. I had back in high school, I remember we had a football coach who taught health class. Mm-hmm. And I remember he intentionally blew through, he still taught us, but he sped through the curriculum so that the last 2 weeks of that semester were free. Mm-hmm. And every day we would come into class and he'd be like, what do you want to learn about? And we learned, he taught us about like debit and credit and the importance of, having your different accounts. And even though it was a super quick, only 2 weeks of going through that was incredibly helpful to then be going off into college. And like you said, we still all make our mistakes, but at least being introduced to it and having some of that knowledge can be very powerful.
It can. I mean, it can be make or break. It could be the difference between getting out of a horrendous situation, mm-hmm. and not, just feeling like you can't, or not being able to, So yeah, it's important stuff for sure.
So what is it that, when you met Renee at that conference event, what is it that interested you about what we do at Gentrio?
First was her spunk, her passion. I mean, she really put me right back on my heels, but in a fun, kind of playful, cheeky way, And she was right. I definitely had some life changes, and I needed to get a few things in order. And it's just incredible how much we kind of push this stuff off. And I love the fact that her and her sister Julie and the whole team there had figured out a way to make make some of the bigger legal expenses when it comes to estate planning and trusts and things of that nature much, much more affordable, because a lot of, there's the legal Zooms, there's other ones that are out there that can do stuff, but they always seem to stop right before the heavy work. And I loved that. I loved the personal story of what they went through with their parents, not because, I mean, that was a tough situation, but I love that this thing was born out of the purpose,
real world situation.
The purpose came from pain. I thought it was an interesting niche, and I really loved the technology, and the passion, and the fact that they were bringing this to the credit union space, going, guys, here's another way that you can serve your membership and you can help with that. And oh, by the way, if we continue to not pay attention to this, there's going to be a massive wealth shift in this next generation. And do you want those dollars to stay with you, credit union, or do you want them to go somewhere else? And so the more you can help folks with this sort of stuff, the more loyalty, like we were talking about before, the more loyalty. So I just love the story. And as time went on, I had just done what I could to help out, make some introductions. And so she, asked me if I would lend my experience from time to time on the advisory board. And that's been a lot of fun. And it's been great to see how far it's come in a relatively short period of time. I know it doesn't feel that way when you're doing it day to day. It's like the slowest thing ever, but that's the credit union space for you. But Gentrio is really impressively grown, and it's just really fun to see all the hard work really coming to fruition now.
Yeah. So for companies, not just Gentrio, but companies like Gentrio, in terms of their relationship with credit unions, in your eyes, why do you think it's so crucial to have these kind of benefits and have members have access to them?
You have to go where your members are, and you think of the conditioning that's happened in the general public over the last 5 years. I mean, I say to you, gosh, I really need a new canoe. I want to buy a new canoe. And guess what? There's going to be 3 ads for Old Town canoes in my Facebook feed in 10 minutes, right? We're so accustomed now to having something brought right up into our face. That bite of pizza, the second we think I could go for some pizza. And it's the same with financial products. It's the same with insurance. It's the same with will and estate planning. And so having solutions for your members that kind of tangentially connect with the money, right? And the ways in which you can help and the ways in which you support your membership is crucial. And there's those different life stages, right? And you need to be there when those different life stages happen. When I got my divorce, was there data to say to my credit union that I was going through divorce? Absolutely. Could my credit union have reached out and said, hey, may want to think about getting that will changed, here's all the things you need. Yep, they could have. And with a program like Gentrio, that's one of the ways that you can touch base with your members in a timely manner that really resonates. And again, it's not even that we appreciate it anymore as a society. I think we expect it. And if we don't get it, if they don't get that from their credit union, they're going to go somewhere else. And then that somewhere else is going to start feeding them other things. And you're going to slowly lose that relationship. We're seeing it over and over every single day. And, it's up to the credit unions to get those strategic partnerships in play and in place, in order to not only attract new members, but also to retain the ones that they have.
Yeah, and I think that all, it kind of goes back again to the doing well while doing good. We kind of focused on victims for the CU Safe initiative, but I think it
Right.
stems to all the members. If you can do well while doing good and have what they need, then that loyalty I think will be there.
Nobody wants to think about this stuff. This is a hard topic. We're talking about death here.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, but when you think about your life's legacy and you think about the meaning beyond it, it's really important that what you leave behind and how you leave it behind is really the way that you want it to be left. And I think that's a big part of the meh that people feel when it comes to this, is that they're just uneducated about what can happen if they don't properly plan. And it's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. I applaud what Gentrio has done, the education that's built into that technology, that system, all of the support that they can provide along with the program itself for the credit unions. It all folds in just perfectly with what credit unions need to do.
Yeah, I think that, definitely our industry can be a bit of a black box to some people. And that's why we have education so front of mind, when talking to potential partners or potential customers, whatever. But that's why we always try to change the focus to leave a legacy, not a mess, and try to help people understand that while it is talking about death, like you said, it's all about how you view it. Whether or not you want to end up just avoiding it because it can be uncomfortable, or looking at it as an opportunity to make sure that things are done the way you want them to, and you leave that legacy that you'd like to have left behind.
It ruins families if it's not clearly done. And my parents sat me and my sister down a couple of years ago and said, we love you guys. We're gonna spend it all. And we said, okay, that's great. All of their friends around them were either dying or were sick or were injured, and they're 74 now, and they love to travel, and they're like, we've worked our ass off, we're gonna travel the world, and we're gonna spend it all. And I was like, Mom, Dad, just leave us a zero balance. You know what I mean? Like, just get it all set up so there's no questions asked. We've done nothing to help you accumulate wealth. We've done the opposite, in fact, for many, many years. And so, hey, you guys do you, but just get it all set up so then we don't have to fight. We don't have to wonder, I wonder if. And, you think about that. It's a really good point. You think about having to hold that bag at the end of it. What do you want if you're holding the bag for a loved one? You want to honor them, and you want to nail it. And the only way to really nail it is if they are crystal clear before they die on what they want.
Yeah. And like you just said, it sounded like you guys were perfectly fine with their decision to spend it all. But again, it's like the fact that you had that conversation instead of at the very end just being like, all right, now let's open the suitcase and see what's inside for the first time. You already knew. So even if there was something or there was nothing left or whatever, you already knew.
Right.
And that's I would say the majority of what causes issues when people don't plan ahead is because you're already in a time of grief, because it's just a tough time of life when someone passes, and then you have to deal with all the extra, the BS
Right.
of oh, now we got to talk money, and people aren't in their right mindset, and it just can cause catastrophe.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, think about how we started our conversation today. Before we went live, you were talking about being up at your family,
Yeah, we're up here in Maine.
camps, right? You're at your family camp. It's been in the family forever, and it's being sold, and you guys are up there for the last time. I mean, those sorts of situations, if they're not properly handled and not clearly handled, those can be family killers, family killer situations. So hopefully that's not the case, and the direction was clear there. But
yeah, but I mean, even so, even outside of Gentrio, I've seen that happen time and time again.
No,
Much less
absolutely.
working for a company that focuses on preventing it, so you get the horror stories anyway. But just my personal life, seen it too many times.
Exactly. So we never want to. There's birth, death, taxes. That's it. It's those three things. And so I think talking about this in a positive way and being proactive and putting this out for your members so that if and when they need something, they know it's available. And that's just viewed as another way that their credit unions got their back.
Exactly.
And that's, at the end of the day, that's what I want. I don't want a financial institution that I feel like they're just waiting for me to trip up so they can make more money on me. I want a financial institution that, first off, I'm an owner of. Second off, I have a voice and a vote. And third, I know that if they make any money at all, it's coming back. That's ultimately what I want, because if it's coming back, then they have my back. That's the way I look at it.
Life's easier when everyone has the same direction in mind.
You got it.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming on here and giving us some insight into the credit union space in your world, and what you guys have going on. Again, can't emphasize enough how awesome I think the CU Safe initiative is.
Yeah, appreciate that. And shameless plug time.
I was going to ask. I was about to say before we wrap up, what's shameless plug would you like?
Shameless plug. CUSafe.care is the website, and you can go in there. You can check it out. Shout out to SafeU, which is our safety app. They just went live in the United States in Albuquerque, and so that's just the SafeU app, which is now live on all of the app stores. It's primarily being baited in New Mexico right now, but it's there. And then for sure, shout out to Members Mobile, as there. It's like Mint Mobile for members of credit unions. Only their charity of choice is CU Safe, and they're going to free the phones by donating SIM cards and discounted phone plans for survivors of domestic violence to free the phone. So shout out to them, and really all of the credit unions and the organizations that see this vision and understand that it's a big problem and have raised their hand to join the fight. It's a big problem. It's going to take all of us. So shout out to everybody there, and shout out to Gentrio for just being an awesome organization. And it's been a lot of fun to just to have a voice and help see this organization grow.
Well, thank you very much, and shout out back to you and everything you're involved in and doing with these awesome institutions. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. As always, I've been your host, Jacob Murphy. JT, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.